You tell him, King Leo, you silly boy.
Welcome to episode 28 of The Lion's Den. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about why Grand Magic Games is the best arc in Fairy Tail. Because Fairy Tail has a bunch of amazing arcs, but for me personally, Grand Magic Games just had something that the other arcs didn't. And it kind of brought more emotional beat to the story. Even though we had Heaven's Tower, um, even we even had the Lucy, the Starry, the Key of the Starry Eye arc. And then we even had a couple other like little sub filler arcs in there as well. But Grand Magic Games was the more emotional beat of the story, especially after Tenro Island. Because Tenro Island, we had a lot of different things. Like we got to get into Kana's story a little bit more to flesh her story out. And we also got into fleshing out a lot of other people's stories like Gildarts and even Makarov's past master Hades. So my first point of why Grand Magic Games is the best arc in Fairy Tail is because Urza versus the 100 Monsters, I wouldn't say it's the best fight in Fairy Tail, but I will say that it's up there. Because we already know Urza was a very powerful wizard because we saw her fight Jalal, and then we also saw her fight. She was the one of the S class masters that you had to fight in Tenro. And after the 7-year time skip, Urza decided to take on all 100 monsters by herself. And everybody was shocked. Everybody was confused. A lot of people doubted her, especially the people from the other guilds, and they didn't think that she would be able to do it. But if you're a fan of Fairy Tail, we all know Urza. And we all know she could do it. But I ain't gonna lie, even watching it, I was a little bit scared too because 100 monsters is a lot. But she got it done. And we even got to see her use something that we didn't get to see her use before, or not really as in depth as the characters in the anime made it seem. She used multiple different swords and multiple different armors in sync, like in unison. Like she used Flame Empress, but then she mixed it with a Water Empress sword. She used Fire Empress armor, but mixed it with the Lightning Empress spear. And that was just very cool. And even though her magic, she was about to fatigue, she still pushed through and she got it done. And for me, that was even more to add on to Urza's arc, especially what she did with getting her second origin against Kagura and Minerva. That was crazy because the second origin, for those of you that watch Fairy Tail, you already know. But for those of you that haven't, the second origin is basically a next level power up for a wizard, and it basically unlocks their next level of magic, if that makes sense. But seeing Urza unlock her second origin against Minerva, and then to get the legendary armor set that if you break it, then you could basically like rule. You're said to be able to rule the world or something like that. And it basically is like Asa's anti-magic sword. It nullifies any magic that comes against it, and it's pretty crazy. But to see Urza fight the 100 monsters and then to see her battle Minerva, that was sick. My next point will be though Natsu and Gajeel versus Rogue and Stain. Now, for all my Fairy Tail fans out there and all my people that are just tuning in for Fairy Tail, if you haven't seen this fight yet, just get ready. Because if not the best fight in all of Grand Magic Games, or excuse me, if not the best fight in all of Fairy Tail, it's the best fight in all of Grand Magic Games. Natsu, this has to have been probably the most hyped up fight that everybody wanted to see in the Grand Magic Games arc. Because a Dragon Slayer in Fairy Tail, it's like a dime a dozen. It's basically like finding a Saiyan in Dragon Ball Z. But Dragon Slayers, you can't get more. Like you can't just reproduce a Dragon Slayer. It has to be found. Like it's rare to find a Dragon Slayer. And especially with the arc that we're in, well, especially where 100-year quest is now, it's even crazier with Dragon Slayers now because 100-year quest basically revolves all around Dragon Slayers. And then later on in GMG, it basically expands more on Dragon Slayers, and they basically rely on Dragon Slayers for that whole last part with like the Eclipse Gate and stuff like that. We'll get into that later. But the Natsu and Gajul versus Sting and Rogue fight. Now, this fight was crazy because the stakes were high. Fairy Tail needed this win because they were down in points by Sabretooth. And they also needed to beat Sabretooth because after the 7-year time jump, Fairy Tail was known as the weakest guild ever. They were known as the strongest and the best guild before, but now they're known as the weakest after the 7-year time jump from Tenra Island. Sabretooth is known as the strongest. They're the strongest guild now. So Fairy Tail and Sabretooth, basically, they have a rivalry now because they think Fairy Tail, they know Fairy Tail was all big and bad back in the day, but now Fairy Tail, they're nothing now, apparently. And so this fight, if Natsu and Gajul would have lost this fight, it would have been cooked. Like it would have been over because nobody would have really even paid more attention to Fairy Tail. They would have probably lost the Grand Magic Games. They would have been the weakest guild in Fiore. But lock in because Natsu and Gajul were putting BTA on Sting and Rogue. Now, I will say, Sting and Rogue are, I think, what is it? Second generation or third generation? No, third generation dragon. The third generation Dragon Slayers. So practically, you got your first generation, second generation, third generation, and then it goes into like fourth, and it's like a whole thing. But we'll say that for another video. But Sting and Rogue are third generation Dragon Slayers, meaning they have a Lacrima, and they also were trained by a dragon. So they already knew the Dragon Slayer magic because Sting knows white Dragon Slayer magic and Rogue knows Shadow Dragon Slayer magic. So Sting was trained by Wessalogia and Rogue was trained by Skeldrum, however you want to pronounce it. So they also got the White Dragon Slayer magic Lacrima implanted. Sting got that implanted into him. And Rogue also got the Shadow Dragon Lacrima implanted into him. So they're basically OP. They're basically like broken, powered up, or whatnot. Now, Gajul and Natsu, they're first generation. They're the OGs. They were just trained by a dragon. They learned the Dragon Slayer magic, and then they upgraded, make it stronger, train, make it stronger, however they make it stronger. But at this point, when Sting and Rogue activated their White Drive and Shadow Drive, I ain't gonna lie, them niggas started putting BTA on my niggas. Like, they started double teaming Gajul. Natsu, he got waxed. He was getting pieced up. They clawed him. He got paralyzed. Gajul got his headband cut off. And then Rogue pulled out the katana, started moving through the shadows, and he just started putting BTA on Gajul. But the even crazier part about this fight. So, you know how hard it is to achieve Dragon Force in Fairy Tail. Natsu, prior to this, Natsu has only achieved Dragon Force, I think maybe once. No, maybe twice. I know he did it against Gajul. It has been a while since I watched Fairy Tail, so I'm going off of pure memory here. But bear with me. But I think he did it. I know he did it once against Gajul. I don't know if he did it against Loxus, and I don't know if he did it against Gildarts. But Gajul, at this point, he hasn't used Dragon Force at all. So, no, he used Dragon Force. I think he used Dragon Force against Gajul, and then Jalal as well. But Gajul doesn't know how to use Dragon Force. Natsu has used it, but Gajul doesn't know how to use it at all at this point. Sting and Rogue flip the table and literally blow everybody's mind at this point. They activate Dragon Force at will. It took Natsu eating the Etherion Crystal to achieve Dragon Force once against Jalal. I think he did it against Gajul. I don't remember when he ate the fire from the thing. I don't remember. But when he ate the Etherion Crystal, he got Dragon Force that time. But Sting and Rogue achieved Dragon Force like that, a snap of a finger. They can turn it off, turn it back on, whatever they feel like. And They started killing niggas when they got Dragon Force. Like, they started pounding, like, I thought the fight was over, low-key, because after they put the belt to him with Dragon Force, then they kind of thought it was over, and then they were like, oh, thank you for the fight. Like, you guys are really powerful, but we're just better. But I knew my niggas wasn't done. Like, I thought they were, but I just knew in my mind, like, I was like, nah, there's no way my niggas getting packed out like this. They got up. You feel me? Natsu did typical Natsu fashion, and he pushed Yagyu down the tunnel in the cart, and my nigga Natsu put BTA on him. The 2v1 of the century. My nigga Natsu put BTA on 2 third-generation Dragon Slayers, packed them out, Fairy Tail's on top. Sabretooth, I mean, they're strong. They got some powerful wizards, don't get me wrong, but Fairy Tail's on top. My next thing I want to talk about, I want to talk about one thing that kind of pissed me off about Grand Magic games, though. And it's about Lucy's story arc in Grand Magic games. Because Lucy really hasn't had too many opportunities up to this point, because she did have Tenro, where she was Kana's partner in Tenro. And then, like, she had a little mini arc going on at with her dad, like with the Phantom, I forgot the Phantom 4 or whatever the Phantom Guild is. You know what I'm talking about. She had that little mini arc with them. But she hasn't really had too many arcs where she kind of got her character like really fleshed out, or we kind of seen really a lot of development from her up to this point that I remember. But the fight, no, I lied. She did have a little bit of development because she learned that new magic. I lied. So, because I forgot, I was missing one arc. The Nirvana arc. Yes, I forgot that arc's name, but the Nirvana arc. So, she had the battle with Corona. And this kind of pissed me off because Lucy was putting BTA on Corona. Like, Corona was putting a little bit of BTA on Lucy, but Lucy was putting BTA on Corona. Lucy had a little bit of new keys. She was putting BTA. Aquarius was getting a little. She was putting some BTA using Aquarius. She was using Cancer, Aries. Leo coming in there putting BTA. And then Corona has some couple parts, you feel me, like where she had Lucy hung up, was about to brand her with the Raven Tail symbol. And we're gonna get into Raven Tail later, because that also kind of teed me off, but another time and later in the episode. But Lucy, she summoned Gemini. And this is where I was like, yo, Lucy is really about to pop off. Because she had the lost magic that Hibiki helped her get. He helped her get it using his archive magic, and he gave her this like celestial constellation power, but she needed like a surplus amount of magical energy to get it. So she used Gemini to help her concentrate the energy. And basically, Ivan, I think, or that one nigga from Raven Tail, they did something to dispel her magic, and it basically drained her magic energy, and then she lost. Which, you ask me, that's dumb. Because why are y'all holding Lucy like that? Like, y'all hold her in the one fight where we get to see her new magic again, because she used it against Angel, but then she got to use it again. But to be fair, I do think that this was good character development for Lucy. Because, not to say that Lucy hasn't lost a fight, but I think she got more character development in this scene. No, not in this scene, but in this arc. Because after losing the fight, she knew that she was stronger than what she thought. And that was even with help from Natsu and her other friends in Fairy Tail. And then after she got beat up by Minerva, and then we gotta talk about that too. Fairy Tail, they got their get back. Like, they got their get back. I ain't gonna lie, they got their get back for that. They did. They got their get back for that, because and then after Minerva, like, so they was really I didn't really like how they hold Lucy in GMG at all. I didn't really like that, Because they hold her against Corona. We didn't really get to see her use the magic. And then she had Aquarius against Minerva. And then she also got hold at that point too. That kind of low-key pissed me off. But let's get into our other part, which is the 7-year time skip, which we talked about a bit. So in Tenro, we all know Agnologia, he attacked Fairy Tail and he basically boomed them. But they all kind of went into like a 7-year coma kind of thing. Because they used, I think it was one of the Grand Fairy spells to protect themselves, but they got put in like a 7-year time gap thing. And it basically, they weren't able to train, they weren't able to do anything. So they were basically weaker. And by that 7-year time gap, since all the strongest wizards in Fairy Tail were gone during the mission, during the S-class training test thing, Fairy Tail basically, it was just a bunch of fodder characters. Like, the fodder characters got stronger, but the guild was known as the weakest guild, and then the guild kind of went to crap. It turned into like a farm or something, and then they were having to pay rent to this one ogre guild with this big dude, and he would come in there and be beating everybody up and stuff. But for what Fairy Tail did, and then how they came and won the Grand Magic Games, what they did at the Grand Magic Games was actually pretty crazy compared to how everybody thought they were going to do because of the 7-year time gap. Because even Mest, even he was like 7 years. Like, that was nothing when he saw Urza fight the 100 monsters. He was like, 7 years? Like, this is what she's doing after being harbored 7 years? And even though they also did get their magical, their magic cores in their bodies, they got them expanded with that training with, I think that was Ultir that helped them with that. I think that was them unlocking their second origins. Or, yeah, I think that was them unlocking their second origins. And they're able to do that, like the painful training they had to go through. Even though they did that, they still put BTA to all the other guilds in GMG after that 7-year time skip. So the 7-year time skip didn't really harbor it didn't really harbor them at all, or it didn't really do like anything bad or that damaging to them. They were still putting BTA like Fairy Tail always does. But like, I do think that 7-year gap, like trope or plot point that they put in there was good, but I do kind of feel like, I mean, it wasn't really needed because, I mean, they were still kind of putting BTA anyways. But to my next thing, Fairy Tail having to prove themselves. This kind of goes hand in hand with the 7-year time gap. Even though I do feel like, I mean, it really wasn't needed, but Fairy Tail having to prove, like, I guess I understand it was needed to get to this point that we're about to talk about now. So Fairy Tail having to prove themselves as the strongest guild again. Because, as you know, Fairy Tail, they were known as the strongest guild before the 7-year time gap. But after the 7-year time gap, a lot of other guilds had got bigger names that had came up, and basically Fairy Tail was not the strongest guild anymore. Like, other guilds had came in the picture, like Lamia Scale, Mermaid Hill, Sabretooth, Quattro Cerberus, Blue Pegasus, and Fairy Tail was at the bottom. So basically, coming into the tournament, everybody was like, oh, what is a Fairy Tail? Like, people acted like they didn't care. They're basically counting Fairy Tail out. And it was a little bit crazy. Because y'all count Fairy Tail out, and that just made it even stronger that my niggas had came and put BTA to all the other guilds. They put BTA to Quattro Cerberus. They put BTA to Blue Pegasus. They put BTA to Sabretooth. BTA to Mermaid Hill. Lamia Scale. Just handing out BTA. Like, they just walking around with the belt. But, I do think that also added to GMG being the best arc in Fairy Tail, because Fairy Tail having to prove themselves as the strongest guild and them doing just that, especially that last part with Sting. Like, he respected Natsu at one point. That's why he wanted to beat him so bad, because he knew Natsu was the strongest. But at that ending point where Sting could have fought Gray, Loxus, Juvia, Urza, who else? I think Lucy might have been in there too, or just that whole group of Fairy Tail where he could have fought all of them if he wanted to. I think Gaju might have been in there too, but he could have fought all of them. He couldn't. Like, the nigga was like, I can't win. because he saw everything that they had been through, and he had to acknowledge them as the strongest guild because the nigga knew he couldn't win. He was like, "Oh no, there's no way. I can't. Like, I can't win. Like, obviously, because even Rufus couldn't beat him. Even that Lightning God nigga couldn't beat him. Like, they are the strongest guild. They've always been the strongest guild." And even the 7-year gap, like I said before, even though I feel like it wasn't needed, it didn't really harbor them like people thought it did. Like the way that they made it seem like that it put so much, like it put so much of a restraint or so much of a dampening on their powers. It really didn't. The 7-year gap really didn't do anything. But my next point, I feel like that we should have got more light to no, actually I don't. More light to side characters. There was a lot more light to a lot of side characters in GMG because we had gotten Elfman versus Bacchus. We had got Mira Jane, even though she was like a low, kind of like a, she wasn't really a side character. She was somewhat a main character, but Mira Jane, Elfman, and we got Loxus somewhere in there too. Wendy, especially with her being a new character, we got Wendy in there as well. We got to see the first master, Mavis. We saw Mavis in there. But just more emphasis on the side characters in GMG, because the fight with Elfman versus Bacchus, the only thing that doesn't put it up there with the best fights, and this might even be a crazy reason, but I do hate that we didn't get to see more of Bacchus. Like, they hyped this nigga up to be so much. We never saw this nigga ever again. And then he got packed out by Elfman. Not saying Elfman's like a low tier character, but Elfman's not an S class mage though. And Bacchus was stated to be as powerful as Urza and Mira Jane. Elfman's not as strong as his sister. He's not as strong as Urza. So, like, I'm confused. Like, I know he had to beat Bacchus because, I mean, you feel me? Like, I did like that he beat Bacchus because I didn't want to see freaking Bacchus taking Mira Jane and Lizana and then Elfman just being beat up. But my thing is, I do feel like Bacchus should have got, like, some redemption. We should have seen more of Bacchus or something at least. Because for them to say that he's that strong, but then us to never see him again, I thought that's kind of crazy. Because I know we saw him at that one point after they had to change their name, but we didn't really see him doing anything else after that. Like, we didn't really see him that much during the Eclipse Gate. We didn't see him during that. Even though it was mainly Dragon Slayer focused, there were still other mages helping out, but we didn't see him. We didn't see him in the war either. At the end, we didn't see him in the war for Fiore, the Fairy Tail War, the war against Alvarez and Fairy Tail. We didn't see him. And his magic was really cool too, because it was kind of like a combination of Drunken Fist, but it was called like Drunken Chang Pong or something like that. And like the more drunk he got, the better his martial arts were, the more damage he could do. It was really interesting, but we just never saw more of it. But we did get more emphasis on more Fairy Tail side characters, like Wendy, for example. That Wendy and Shelia fight was actually crazy because Wendy gave it her all, and like Shelia was just busted, even though like she was just a kid. She was busted. Like, her powers were crazy. Sky Godslayer magic, and then she can heal herself. What the fuck? That was crazy. And we saw some very powerful growth from Wendy in that one, because Wendy was able to break through, and I think she used the Dragon Slayer secret arts in that one as well. So that was a very good fight, and that was also some good side character emphasis that we got to see on Wendy. So I do like that we got to see more of the side characters, even though like at the beginning with Max versus Natsu, we saw some side character action from him. Like, they've been training. So at least like we know that the side characters are doing something. Like, they're not just side characters. Like, you know, some shows do side characters very odd. Like, they just have them over here and they got the main cast, and side characters aren't really doing jack shit. But at least we knew the side characters were doing something while the main niggas were gone and the side characters were training. And because we saw that when Max got stronger until Natsu busted out Lightning Dragon Fire mode and he was about to pop that nigga shit. But Moreover, at least we know more like the side characters. Now, the next thing I want to talk about the intro to the new guilds. Now, obviously, we know Fairy Tail wasn't the only guild in Fairy Tail. But I do like the intro that they gave us to the other guilds because I forgot about that one arc at the beginning of this episode. I forgot about where they did the guild combination raid thing to find Nirvana. But I do like how they introed the new guilds in the GMG because we got some even more like Sabretooth, Quattro Cerberus, because we saw a gold mine before, but now we get to see his guild. And then we got to see more like Mermaid, Hill. We had already seen Lamius Scale, and we had already seen Blue Pegasus. But there are like 1,000 other guilds in there too, with like some very strong people. And that was the thing. There's a lot of strong people in those new guilds. And I just like the way that they got introduced because a lot of them were out for Fairy Tail's head. And the way they got introduced was like everybody was trying to top Fairy Tail because, like I said, Fairy Tail's been like obviously the name of the show, but they were the strongest guild. But now everybody like the title for strongest guild is basically up for grabs now. So all the new guilds that we got introduced to are like aiming for it. And they had like some very interesting characters too, like Bacchus, Stang, Rogue, Yukino, Minerva, that other dude, I forgot his name, but all the guilds have some pretty strong characters though. And I like how they introduced the new Slayer magics too, like with God Slayer magic and all that. It was very interesting. And I just like how we got intro to the new guilds. I don't really have too much to say about the new guilds. But there are a couple things that I do wish. Here we are on the back end of the episode. I wish that they had explained a lot more. And one of these is I feel like everybody has this issue, but the Raven Tail guild. There's not a lot that can really be said. Nah, I lied. There is a lot that can really be said because Raven Tail was set up to be the opposite of Fairy Tail, obviously, but they were set up to be Fairy Tail's rival. And I don't really understand why they didn't get more light or why we didn't see more of Raven Tail, because we saw Lucy versus Corona, and then we got to see then we even got that little filler arc. I don't even know if that was canon. Well, no, it was canon, but it was like a filler. I don't know if it was filler like canon to the main story. I think it was filler. That whole giant village arc with the Eternal Flame, Atlas Flame thing, and then it got frozen by Gray's father, Silver. But we didn't really get to see it. We saw the whole fight with Luxus versus Raven Tail. But I kind of feel like that was like if they're supposed to be the ops to Fairy Tail, and then Makarov even sent Gajo on a whole mission to go and find this nigga Ivan. So for them to just get packed out like that by Gajo, it kind of was lackluster. And I do feel like we should have got more because Makarov was like, oh, Ivan knows all these secrets about Fairy Tail. He knows this, he knows that. Well, if he knows all these secrets, how's he getting packed out so easily? And if he was so strong, that would mean that if he was so strong to go make his own guild, why is he getting packed out so easily by his son? And I just kind of felt like that was kind of just a little bit of bad writing, in my opinion, because I do feel like that Raven Tail should have got we should have at least seen more, or maybe like a longer fight at least, or they should have stayed in the Grand Magic Games like a little bit longer, because they're the opposition to the quote unquote strongest guild, or well, not even quote unquote, but yeah, the strong quote unquote now, but the strongest guild before. Raven Tail is their op. So why is Raven Tail getting packed out so easily by one nigga? Even though Luxus is one of the strongest members of Fairy Tail, I feel like he shouldn't have been able to pack out a whole entire guild by himself. Because I do feel like, especially with how strong Fairy Tail is, and if Fairy Tail is that strong, Raven Tail is considered their rival, so Raven Tail should be that strong too. I do feel like that they should have went out in more of like a glorifying way rather than like a kind of just getting packed out by one dude. Now, the other thing that I also wish got expanded a little bit more was how Yukino got the Ophiuchus key. Because with the celestial spirits, it was kind of very not confusing, but it was just kind of very intriguing to see like that there are multiple keys. And we learned about that one wizard having multiple of them. But when Lucy fought Angel, we know Lucy has some gold keys, and then we saw, oh, so there's more gold. Like, obviously, there's more gold keys. But we see who has them. And even though, like, Karen, like, she was strong, but we find out Angel was the one that killed her, and she took her Aries key, and then Angel also had Scorpio and Gemini. So that's how Lucy got the Scorpio and Gemini and Aries key that she used in GMG. But Yukino had something very intriguing. And it was also very interesting because Sabretooth was supposed to be this powerhouse guild. So, of course, they have powerhouse wizards. So, of course, they would have a powerhouse celestial spirit wizard too, right? And she had a rare key, which was the black key. And it was very confusing because I wish they would have expanded on more on how she got the 13th gate key. Because if you read up on the Zodiac, like even the actual astrology part of it, like not the fairy tale part, there is no 13th gate. So I would have liked just a little bit more of an explanation, like from her or just from like the story of how she came across the black key. I don't know if they gave that in the eclipse or anything, but from my knowledge, I do wish that we would have got more on the black key, because if she's such a strong, never mind, that's a whole nother thing. But to finish us off here, I do also wish the fight with Sting in Geneva and Natsu versus Geneva was a little bit longer, because I know Minerva had captured Happy and Natsu had to leave because Happy got captured. But I do wish that fight would have lasted a little bit longer, because he's supposed to be the strongest master, because he's the master of Sabretooth, or he's supposed to be one of the strong masters. But he was getting his pockets ran. Like, Natsu minked him, then he started hitting him with the freaking rapid punch. And then he lost the Sting by getting a hole punch through his chest. But if you're the strong, you're losing to your subordinate. If you're supposed to be the master of Sabretooth, aren't you supposed to be OP? And then you teach Minerva the supremacy magic or whatever it's called. I forgot what it was called, but her warp space distortion stuff. Then you teach her that? Like, my nigga, do you not have that too? And that just kind of, I don't know. I feel like he just kind of went out a little bit sad. Even though he did come back in Tartaros, I don't feel like that was even a good fight either, because then he got packed out by the twin dragons. And I mean, who couldn't have saw that coming? And that's another thing. Like, Tartaros, I know some people say Tartaros is the best arc or the last arc is the best arc. Like, last arc wasn't bad. Tartaros wasn't bad. But from everything that I said in this video, let me know in the comments if you agree that GMG is the best arc. Even if you disagree, let me know. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the video and subscribe to the channel. That's really all I got about GMG being the best arc in Fairy Tail. If you disagree, let me know. If you agree, let me know. But until then, my kingdom, this is King Leo. I'll see you guys on the next one.